I feel like there has been an epidemic of bad character building in action sequences. There's a lot of sequences like this one. You know the type. The character is fighting someone that looks cool, and there's cool music playing, and the character appears to be about to die, and then at the last second, out of nowhere, they pull out their totally not lightsabers and stab the monster. It's a surprise to the audience, but that's kind of all it is. It's an incredibly unsatisfying way to end a scene, and while, listen, not a lot of things were satisfying about this movie, it's happening even in movies I like. Like in the climax of Dune 2, for example. This is a movie I enjoyed, but it does the same thing. Makes you think that Timothée Chalamet's character Paul is about to die, when instead he actually is the one who stabbed the knife and he has won. Surprise, surprise. To me, this has summed up a lot of action. It's usually mindless guys swinging swords around to finally have a thing happen off screen that is the big surprise of the scene, which isn't necessarily a horrible scene. I mean, this is still a cool moment, but I think when you compare it to some other action sequences, you can really see why this type of storytelling really isn't the best, in my opinion. Like, let's compare it to one of my favorite action sequences from the show Game of Thrones. So, there's a bit of setup before this action sequence. Well, what you need to know is that Tyrion, one of our main characters, needs Oberyn, who's a very likable character we kind of have just met, to win in a one-on-one duel for both of them to survive. However, before the fight, we learn that Oberyn is very overconfident. He's drinking before the fight, which is apparently customary, but still a little concerning. He's not wearing a helmet because he wants to be lighter, but Tyrion has expressed some concerns about some of these choices, as Oberyn seems incredibly overconfident. Then, right before the fight sequence begins, Oberyn makes it clear that his goal in this fight is less about winning the fight and more about getting his opponent, the Mountain, to admit that he did horrible things to Oberyn's family. So that's what Oberyn is kind of going for. And then the fight begins, and we kind of learn why Oberyn was so confident. The fight is going very well. He has one slight slip up when he's showboating at a certain point, but for the most part is dominating this fight because he is the better fighter. He's overconfident for a reason, right? So he has the Mountain dead to rights, and it's looking pretty good, but as I mentioned earlier, sure, he needs to just get the fight over with, but what he wants is to get the Mountain to admit the horrible things he has done in the past. So instead of just killing the Mountain, he is now standing around yelling at the Mountain, trying to get him to say what he wants, and that is when this happens. Because of the delay and because the Mountain had time to catch his breath, he is able to turn the tides and win the fight now. To me, this is so much more interesting of a scene than had they done the thing where it just looks like Oberyn's going to win and at the last second the Mountain wins. They have that twist, they have that surprise, but it's a character-based surprise instead of just something that happens off screen. When I go back and watch all of my favorite action sequences, they're littered with moments like these, sometimes not even massive moments. For example, the Terminator truck sequence is already a great scene because usually part of what makes an action scene so good is when you just can't believe the main character will get out of this situation. And having a giant truck chasing a kid on a bike is certainly a dramatic situation, even with Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator is chasing behind. So there is some hope, but it doesn't seem great. But the way that they're able to win is because the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator, takes a chance and actually risks his life to help save John Connor. Of course, this is because the Terminator is programmed that way, but as an audience member, it still lets us know kind of how determined both of the Terminators are to achieve their goal. Also in the famous old boy one-take fight sequence, this is another good example, I would say. Sure, the cinematography is great, the choreography is great, all of that stuff is incredible, but it's not just that. It is showing how determined this character is to get his goal and kind of how deranged he has become in this moment. Sure, it is a cool scene, but it is very much a character scene as well. When I compare that to a late season Game of Thrones moment, this is the situation. Our main characters find themselves surrounded by White Walkers. What are they going to do? It's a kind of a great moment to get some good drama here. I mean, this is a disaster situation for our characters, so whatever they decide to do is going to be interesting and tell us more about the characters. Except instead, Daenerys just comes by with dragons, at the last second, saves the day, and then that's it, which is just not as interesting to watch as an audience member. And I really feel like a lot of action sequences end up being more like this and less like the ones that I mentioned before that I personally find far more interesting. But yeah, that's my opinion on all this. What's yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.